Yeah. No, not like that. But we can do that. Should I say as a intro?
Boom! What is up, everyone? Welcome to Simulation. We have an awesome episode today.
Hello.
We are going to be talking about comedy. We're going to be talking about science. We have epic Bay Area comedians joining us today. Florentina Tanase, Justin Lucas.
Hello.
Thank you for coming on to the show.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you. Yes, it's been... Yeah.
How are you?
And these two are friends. These two go back.
Yeah, I know,
I was
met
wiping
it.
Alan's sweat on your hands. That's what I was trying to do.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Sure.
Shake my hand, wipe it off. Yeah.
That's good.
So here's something really cool. So I've known you guys now for almost two years-ish. We had a couple productions that we did together on the science comedy show Eureka together. That was super fun. You guys have exceptional chemistry. You also have backgrounds in health and science, which also adds, it gives you that flavor of being able to talk about comedy and write comedy, but also have it from a science perspective, a literate perspective in the sciences, which is exciting. Okay, so this is really, for me, this is awesome because this is one of our first shows that we're doing on comedy. The first show, really, that we're making a comedy show.
Oh,
No.
so special.
It's nice. I thought it was because I was a nurse, but all right.
You're not anymore.
I'm not anymore. I'm just Filipino.
There's a lot happening in the world of comedy.
There's a lot.
And comedy itself has been it's a path. It's a path that it's tough because you can't just break through as a comic. You have to usually work multiple jobs. I want to hear about some of your journeys first in the comedy space, and then we'll talk about what's going on in the current comedy scene, and we'll unpack some of the pressing science topics.
But first, a word from our sponsors.
Done.
And we're back. Thank you so
Fire
much.
suck.
Our sponsor is Jesus.
You are watching Stimulation. We forgot to put the T on it.
No, Stimulation's the late night show.
I'll be gone.
It's just between Justin and
I'll be gone.
In my safe space.
La da dee 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 dee.
Tell me, when did you guys first start in comedy? How did you guys even?
How'd you get started?
Yeah.
Who was that?
God.
The voice of God.
Hey, Ron.
Finally,
Hey.
God's real name is Ron.
Okay. It's Ron in Hebrew. Hello. When did we first start with comedy?
Let's start with
Go ahead.
Florentina.
Yeah.
Ladies first.
Okay. My name is Florentina. My name is Florentina Tanase, not Tanase. My name is Justin Lucas. I started comedy in 2011. I think it was March of 2011. And have been doing it ever since. I initially stared at San Francisco Comedy College, SFCC, so it is my alma mater. And I was successful at it, and I had people who liked me in SFCC, and I was doing other open mics. People liked me from there, and I ended up from word of mouth. And mouth of word, I was able to book other different shows, and I just started developing my comedy. And I talk about my family, I talk about my past college, high school, and family, and what else do I do? Oh, I do different voices, and I talk about my healthcare experience. And it's really fun. I love it. It's just I don't know where I'd be if it weren't for comedy.
In your big ass house. How about that? Sipping your
I don't know where I'd be without comedy. Probably in my 3th-floor mansion in San Francisco's Inner Sunset District.
not having to pay any
Love.
So before we unpack how you actually get through the process of maybe writing and coming up with these stories, let's ask with Florentina, when did you get started with it?
Well,
Deep breath.
let's see. So on the streets of San Francisco by OMG, just like on a heroin bender.
Totes.
When I heard comedy from the inside. No, I'm kidding.
No, she's not.
I started comedy 3 years ago, and
3 years only?
the reason that I started comedy was a bit sad. I was at work and I had a panic attack I was really stressed at work. And so I was home for a few days and I just found myself writing jokes. And my husband was like, just try comedy. Like, why don't you do it? You've been talking, and I had been talking about it for such a long time. And then I think it was a few nights later, we had a friend over and I was telling them how I want to do comedy. And she told me about the same
SFCC?
FFCC.
Yeah.
So I did a class and I think it's useful because my first set was so horrible.
Totally.
Yeah.
And my second.
Me too. Yeah.
Oh, you guys saw it?
We're not talking about the class. We're talking about you and your comedy. I'm kidding.
The really nice part of that was that I wasn't at a club or anywhere where people could see me, and I like got it out of the way, you know. And also it did open up other avenues because I had no idea where to do comedy even. I thought, I just go to the punchline, right?
And then
like,
you get your degree in comedy and then you just apply to
them.
different jobs.
Like, hey, can I go up after Dave Chappelle? Thank you.
Totally.
Like, do a quick bit.
But I would like to add to that because at SFCC, not that I'm promoting SFCC, but it is a safe environment in that if you were to do like an open mic for the first time in parts of San Francisco or different venues in San Francisco, there is that danger of being completely deterred from doing comedy because you might bomb in front of a crowd, which I totally did in the first, the first 2 shows.
Yeah.
Bombing is normal with basically everything we do.
Absolutely.
We fail until we get
Politics,
good at something.
comedy, everything.
Politics, comedy, war.
A lot of bombing.
Failure.
But I will say also that you really have to get out of that environment, that safe environment, and then just do it.
On your own.
Yes.
So right after I did the course, I'm like, okay, like, let me do these open mics and get more into real world situations where you are also working with a crowd and interacting with them as well. So so I've been doing it ever since.
So this is a good place to pick up. So you had a panic attack and then you went and started working on writing jokes, and then there was kind of these forces like your husband and your friends that were like, go try, give it a go, and then you did. And with Justin too, once you guys gave it a go, there's of course these, just like when you're shooting a basketball for the first time or you're learning how to give public speaking or whatever you're doing, gardening, it just takes time for you to get good at the thing. So so over time you're getting good, you're getting better. I want to know how you first came up with the materials that you were using. You said that you were using kind of your family and your history. How did you guys come up with the material, and how does it become funnier over time? How do you work on the delivery of your jokes, the storytelling?
That's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about inequality.
And AI.
I don't want to talk about
I think it's easier to talk about AI. Well, that figuring out the process is also something that you have to figure out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because sometimes an idea will just come to my head, and I'll really like a punchline, and then I have to kind of reverse engineer it and figure out, well, in what scenario would I say that punchline? But a lot of the hard work is really just writing nonsense, it not making sense, and then eventually finding something good. Or if you find a premise, to continue writing it. Waiting for inspiration is probably not the best way to go about it, because that could be weeks and weeks until you find an idea that you want to explore.
So are you usually taking something like a punchline and then writing a story that leads you to that?
Not anymore. Well, what I'm saying in the beginning is that was what I would try to do, and it was a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
Whereas now, every day I just try to write topics or something funny that happened, and then
You write every day?
No, I said try.
Okay.
No, but not writing full on paragraphs or something. But if let's say I heard a funny interaction in front of me at the coffee shop, I'll write that down real quick, and then maybe when I sit down, I'll have at least a few premises to go off of, rather than, I want to write now, my mind is blank, I can't think of anything.
Yep.
I would say that the best teacher is obviously in being in front of an audience, because they'll definitely tell you whether or not you are funny.
That's
based on
right.
whatever it is you write.
Unless it's a room full of comics.
That's
then you'll
true.
never know.
Then you will never really know. But in front of an audience that is, say, for example, like paying audience or even free audiences, they'll let you know. And the best teacher that I found out is your recording of your set. And I think the biggest obstacle that people, like new comedians and amateur comedians need to get over is just being able to record themselves and actually watch the video.
The video afterward, yeah.
Yes, because you, just as judgmental as you are with other comedians, when the comedians go up on stage before and after you, so too will you be just as judgmental when you're watching your video. And you can pick up things that were really good and then be able to edit whatever it is you need to in order to make it more precise and onto the next joke. And I've learned that the hard way, because it was only after watching several videos, after however many months or years of doing stand-up comedy, that I realized, oh my God, I can actually learn some stuff. But I haven't seen a video of mine for a long time. And even when I do record, it will be like a 10-minute set, but I'll only ever watch like no more than 2 or 3 minutes of it, because I'll get too self-conscious of and judgmental of something that I performed and wrote myself, and stuff I will like, and then stuff I'll just be too hard on myself.
So a huge first step is to go and do an open mic itself. So after you have some material, go and take the leap and do an open mic, and then record yourself at the open mic so you can use that to get better.
Absolutely.
And test the material that you're writing on the audience to see how well they react to it.
Another thing too, I've learned also that more often than not, you will come up with new stuff while on stage that you might not remember when you get off stage, that you will be able to pick up in your video. So I've come up with a lot of different jokes from just randomly talking to a person in the audience and riffing.
Yep.
Or something that comes to mind, like an ambulance siren will be off in the background, be like, oh, my Uber ride's here, or something, I don't know. And then, you know, coming up with new stuff that way.
Teach me how much you like to do crowd work. Teach me.
Teach me.
How much you like to do crowd work, and kind of what your style is with crowd work, because that's all improvisational. You can have a couple jokes that you want to have as an outline through your talk, and then maybe you want to do some improv with your jokes, but also some improv with the audience. So how do you sort of fit that into the equation?
What do you mean, like teach you how to do it?
No, teach me how you...
Teach me how to do Dougie.
Teach me how.
Dougie, teach me how to...
Foot high five.
I'm barefoot. These are my shoes, by the way. If anybody wants to buy these after the show, let me know. That's a cool painting, by the way, over there.
See? You just
Sorry, exactly.
Yeah. I'm into it.
So what does that look like to do crowd work? How do you figure out what percentage of your time you want to invest in a crowd work? How do you find the right people
when
to
you have to do a
to?
40-minute show and you only have 20 minutes of material.
You promised a producer that you could do 40 minutes, but you really only have 20 minutes
of actual material, you will damn well make sure that you can do crowd work. And even then, if it doesn't have to be great crowd work, you just have to meet that 40-minute quota.
I think really good shows, some of the best shows I've seen incorporate mostly riffing off of what the audience says and building on it, because the audience knows that it's improvised.
Yes.
Or at least they think that it is all improvised, because some of your responses, like you might ask someone, how's your day? And you might already know how you're going to answer them, but the audience thinks it's all improvised, and therefore it makes it funnier because it's spontaneous. Yeah. And so really, I feel like the only way to get good at riffing is to try it.
Yes. And
if you consider that the audience member is your friend, and when you're in a regular conversation, you're with your group of friends, you're just trying to make each other laugh. So it's the same format, except there's 50 other people judging your reaction to whatever that person is saying. Yes. So really the only way is to do it and fail. And I
think it also allows the audience to be included in whatever comedy you're actually doing.
Definitely.
Too. So that means, there's an extra bonus for us. Rather than just listening to comedy, we can actually partake in the comedy.
Yeah.
Correct. So
sometimes they don't want to hear a monologue.
Exactly. And you'll also determine that within the first 2 minutes of doing your stand-up comedy, like, oh fuck, I'm not getting material. Am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Thank fucking goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna get fined. No. It is great to incorporate doing, riffing with an audience, because one, yes, it includes them in your comedy, and also
unless they talk too much.
Yeah, unless they talk.
Then well, that's another. Rude.
Yeah, if your material, first of all, you should probably, I don't know, we learned this at SFCC or comedy college or whatever. or I think it's even been said by celebrities, like always start off with some of your strongest jokes first so you can really grab them.
Yeah, grab them. Yeah.
If those aren't working, obviously, then yeah, let's do some crowd work, and then that'll start.
And when you do crowd work, like you said, you're engaging the audience, they're getting excited because you're actually talking to them, they're part of the show. Do you come off in like a quite a friendly way? You know, like sometimes you can say, sometimes comedians will start and be like, "How are you?" And then they'll say something, and then they'll immediately, like you said, they'll have that joke right afterward.
I've tried both.
Yeah.
And it depends. It really depends. I feel like usually if someone in the audience is being rude, and then you're rude back to them, but in a funny way, then at least the rest of the audience laughs because they're tense because that person is being annoying. Yeah. And they're looking at us like, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, so yeah, that's right.
In that case, it's fine. But if the whole crowd is cold, and then you pick on one person who was reluctant to say anything, and then you say something like, what, did you guys not get enough sleep tonight? Or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
People will be even more reluctant to hear you out, hear your material.
That's a huge key. You never want to call the audience out for being like, oh, did you guys not get enough sleep?
I've seen that comedians do that. I don't think it's a good idea. And I think Mr. Chappelle or whoever said, or Mr. Chris Rock ended up saying, never blame an audience.
Never blame the audience. Always blame yourself for everything that happens.
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially for a paying audience too.
Yeah.
Don't fucking tell us.
So then
I think that's also the biggest hurdle new comics
learn
is not blaming the audience. Because I even remember that about myself. I would think I had such a great set, and I would come off like, oh, like this audience is so cold, this, that, the other. And now it's always,
how can I make my set better?
Exactly. Yeah. Like, okay, that was good, not great, let me fix it.
I think initially with brand new comics, amateur comedians, they'll kind of go with that nasty like riffing, and which is exactly what I used to do, or I still sometimes do if somebody's being nasty to me in the audience. For the most part though, I've been lucky to have only positive riffers, and like there's good riffers, there's nice, actually friendly riffers, and so I'll react very friendly to them. Or if I am nasty to them, but they were initially being very friendly to me, and I'm nasty back to them, I'll apologize. I'm just kidding, I didn't mean it like that. What I meant was blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
to get back on their side.
Your character, because if you are known to be rude, then people are going to be happy that you're making fun of them because they know that's your style. But that's definitely down the line too.
I think another thing too is that with stand-up comedy, yes, your jokes are funny and yes, you are entertaining, but another element with comedy and performing live is being likable. Yeah. And so that goes with being able to riff without having to be nasty and resorting to just sexual stuff. You can say, oh, that's cool, so does my grandma, or I don't know, relate somehow to that person and make it funny. And I think those are the people who make the best comedians, and being able to make something that is relatable to everybody, and it's actually on some positive or friendly note rather than on a nasty one where everybody's just ganging up on this one individual. But
I love that as well. That actually is, to me, is the best kind of comedy, is where I'm walking away laughing my ass off and learning a lot about just something that's so relatable to a lot of people. That's usually my favorite. A quick, before we move on to the next topic, just a quick thought about crowd work. Do you like to visually parse the audience for things that stand out, like a couple that's maybe really like close to each other, and then you can kind of like, you know, poke at them a little, or you see some guy with his baseball cap on backwards and you're like, what about that? You know, so are you looking for visual cues as well?
Well, I'll tell you, when you're riffing, you feel like when you decide, okay, I'm gonna riff, you're like, at least for me, I feel like I have no time in the world. Like I cannot pause and then think what I'm going to say, because it has to look so natural, like you just saw something in the audience. And so usually that is the response. Like I'll scan real quick, and for whatever reason my eyes will stop at someone for nothing.
And I think the best riffing is reactionary rather than having to think about it. And there have been moments where I had the thought in my mind, but I wasn't able to really articulate it at that very moment, and of course it ends up getting messed up.
Yeah, because if you're like scanning the crowd and the audience is like noticing you're looking, then they know like, oh, you couldn't make that joke, you couldn't make that joke, you couldn't make that joke, you couldn't make that joke. You found the perfect
opportunity,
scenario.
So, and you didn't take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, how does one break through in comedy? Because right now,
Tell us.
tell us.
I wish if anybody
gosh,
knows,
Dave, come
let us
in.
know so we can tell Alan. Okay,
Yeah.
Dave, come in, Dave.
This is,
I would like to think that this is the answer, but you tell your answer, and I'm telling you mine. How does anyone break into comedy?
break through, because right now, pretty much anyone that gets involved in comedy has to work a job and do comedy part time.
Well, that's not breaking through.
That's not breaking.
Well,
What I would
breaking-
say-
Oh, girl. Well, that's not breaking.
Well,
Somewhere else.
wouldn't you say breaking through would be just the start of breaking through is when you can do it full time, and then maybe the next step is when you actually get to have maybe a
I
special.
don't know if I
so
agree
difficult
with that,
to
because
agree.
if I don't know if I agree with that entirely,
Yeah.
only because I think like Janine Garofalo, hey Miss Garofalo, I think posted it or ended up saying it like, you don't choose your comedy chooses you. And thank you, Ron. Yes, and I think when you submit yourself and you allow yourself to be completely overtaken with that, and you realize that after however many years, because I'm only now beginning to realize what my comedy really is. That's, I think, when an individual comedian actually breaks through
you mean
at an individual level.
Finding your voice.
Finding your voice and being able to harness it at will, rather than just like going on stage and not being entirely prepared, and being able to have that confidence and know that you in fact do have value, that you are funny, that you can make a living at this, and regardless of whether or not you are making $1,000 at a private gig in one 30-minute set.
You
or just
are
making,
on Friday? Oh my God, can I come?
no, half of that much. But it is half an hour.
Awkward.
Okay. Or, you know, or when you
Is that
do
20
get.
minutes of riffing?
It's going to be 20 minutes of riffing, another 10 minutes of material. But when you do, you know, when it becomes validating from other people, other comedians and other people telling you that, you know, you made my day, that I think, are you an LA comedian? Or God, I don't even want to say that, but are you a comedian? Because I'm like, I don't know if all LA comedians are really funny, but let's say, oh, you should be on TV, or, you know, when
Are you
you
a Santa
have.
Cruz comedian?
Let's see. Or if you've, like, you know, won a competition, or you've gotten a really great review written about you.
Yeah. I think there's different stages, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're starting out, when we're talking about breaking through, you definitely mean like making
monetarily?
it. And I would say that now, as a comedian, you can't just do comedy anymore. It has to be like comedy and writing for an online article, comedy and videos, comedy and talk show, comedy and politics. Like, always something else.
Yeah. Interesting.
And then, depending on what kind of comic you want to be, that's your breakthrough moment, right? Like, if I wanted to write political commentary, then I guess my goal would be, I want to write on a show like Samantha Bee, or write on a show like The Daily Show.
Yes.
So for me, that would be breaking through.
Yeah.
Cool.
For me, breaking through also, yes, while I do want to write for, you know, Saturday Night Live, other sketch, I do write sketch comedy here for Killing My Lobster in San Francisco, but I personally would like to write my own stuff. And in fact, I do write my own stuff, stand-up comedy-wise, and also when it comes to sketch comedy, I've recently started writing short stories too. I'm now getting confident enough to think that, well, shit, if that other comic was able to do it and now have his own show, Miss Ellen DeGeneres, no, or Ray Romano or whoever, I'm beginning to develop an awareness that it's not impossible for me to do.
Yeah, there's so many more choices.
Good.
Whereas
Yeah.
before, it used to be, I just do comedy, and I'm
Correct.
going to get my own sitcom about my family.
But now it's even like, now it's coming to the point where not just performing and entertaining by doing comedy, you actually want to send a message to people. You realize too that it's a privilege to be on that stage and talking to people who actually want to listen to you.
Yes,
And
it
if
is
you
a
are going to,
privilege.
yes, I think so. And if you are going to say something for 15 minutes or even just 5 minutes, make that shit damn good.
Make it damn good.
Make it damn good and make it
Don't waste
authentic.
people's time.
And that's
Yep.
what I see a lot of comics do, or comedians do, where they will go up on stage and they'll do 10 minutes and it's just complete talking. There wasn't any preparedness for it, and they're just speaking, or maybe they're just riffing, but there's nothing funny about the riff that they're doing.
Sure.
And I can't help but think, yo, what the fuck are you doing? Like, people are actually here trying to listen. They're paid. They're paying audience one. And not only that, but there's other comedians here whose spot you've taken.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And that's just so disrespectful, I think. And I think that's blasphemous, and I think it is sacrilegious to the art of comedy.
Having said that, though, people can have bad
Totally.
bad days.
These are the failures that lead us up to the breakthrough. So you made this clear. It's like when you have your short sets, just you make the absolute best of the short time you have, make as profound of an impact as you can, and then over time, your breakthrough kind of just depends on what you care about. If you want to, but you should pair your comedy with writing, with video, with politics, with something that is edgy, that kind of puts you at the edge of the different sides of the field, and not just something that can be found somewhere else. Like, what's the secret sauce that
being in minority?
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily edgy. When I first started, I do think that I was trying to be very edgy just for the sake of being edgy. And now I do appreciate more the fact that I don't want to shock the audience, even though that's still a good reaction to have, because the audience has this tension building up, and then eventually you could release it. But I do appreciate comics who are like, I just want to make you guys laugh. I don't have an agenda. This is just my personality, and it's going to be damn funny. And I don't think you have to be edgy. And there are
Let's make a distinction between edgy and the edge, because I think I don't know exactly what the distinction is, but being on being on like the edge of a field is what I'm talking about. So you're like at the cutting edge of whatever aspect of comedy politics, comedy writing, or comedy video that separates you from other people.
Well, I would say it's the opposite. It's because there's so many different venues. There's not really a shortage. There's not like, oh, I'm trying to get to this edge, and now I'm here, and now so you have to go to this other. I don't know.
I mean, I'm able to. I guess I'm able to be edgy or because I'm a minority. I'm a gay Filipino man with long, beautiful, luscious Fabio-like hair, and I'm able to draw on those experiences and then turn that into my comedy. But I think for the most part, regardless of whether or not you're edgy or a minority, or you're coming from the outside perspective and reflecting that, if you are funny, that is key. And I think that's what ends up happening, is that I think a lot of comedians today, I don't even know if I have the right to speak on this, but I think maybe a lot of comedians today kind of write stuff and present it and perform it because it's stuff that they believe or think that people want to hear, versus just what versus whether or not it's actually funny to them. And I think if we came to that realization that it's okay if it may offend a couple people, because if you're fucking hilarious and you are entertaining and you are actually authentically funny in whatever offensive way to the fucking minority idiot who ends up being offended on behalf of somebody, not because they themselves are Asian, but are becoming offended on behalf for the Asian person when somebody does an Asian accent on stage, like myself, then that's not what comedy is. I mean, it just, if you're fucking authentically funny, that's priority number one, and that will trump anything, whether or not it comes to being non-politically correct, or being offensive, or being whatever.
Perfect transition into political correctness in comedy and offending people. This sort of taken the last couple of decades of comedy, where you could say what you want and be your authentic self, and poke at these sort of areas of society that you want to just make fun of to some extent, get people to have a little bit more fun and playfulness around some of these topics. And now today in 2018, a lot of people are just shutting people down that are trying to make jokes about things that are considered not politically correct. So tell us about what you think the role of political correctness in comedy. You started a little bit in that area, Justin. I'd love to hear more.
I mean, that's not to say go out and start saying the N-word if you're white and it's okay for that, or that person,
totally.
Talk about their experience of sexually harassing a person at work or anything. Don't talk. That's not to say go out there and that's okay. No, I'm just saying if it's funny, then do it. No, I'm kidding. I think though that there is, sometimes it can be taken to an extreme. I think take that however you may like. I don't know. That's all I can say. That sometimes it may be taken to an extreme. If you're asking me what can be taken to an extreme, I don't really know exactly, but I think there's a cost when it comes to a comedian hoping to not offend so much that they end up losing their career.
Yeah.
Which is what every comedian has to think about, I guess, when they have a career. I guess we don't have to worry about it too much right now at the moment.
Fine. You're safe.
Let's take a look at how, you know, Roseanne or, you know, Bill Burr, these different sort of comedians have poked at maybe
Bill Burr's in trouble? Oh my God, save him.
These other like genders, right? So the fact is you'll have a woman talking about men, or you'll have a man talking about women, and you'll be kind of stereotyping and generalizing another gender or another, like white people getting stereotyped or black people or Asian people or whatever minority group. So what do you say? How does one engage in fun, lively, poking fun at men or women or certain cultures or religions? How does one do that in a way that it can still be acceptable today?
If you are funny about it. I don't know.
No, if you go to a comedy show, just don't get so offended. Don't get ready to be so offended, because I think what's happening, what's this new phenomenon is, we have so much information online. The social media has definitely changed people's views on things, because you can be offended about everything. Everything. I remember there was a time, not even long ago, when there was I mean, there's always like horrible stuff happening in the world, but it's amplified on social media. And there was something that happened in America, some big tragedy. I can't even remember because there's so much. Let's say a school shooting, something of that nature in America. And then people were like, oh my God, that's so sad, right? And then there were other people saying like, oh yeah? So I shouldn't laugh at this is horrible.
It's great. Talk about school shootings, go on.
No, it wasn't even that. They like were like, oh yeah, well, this mall in Africa got blown up. How come you're not talking about that?
Yeah.
And then it's like, it becomes this whole like trumping of like, oh yeah, I can get you even more sad, or like, you should be outraged about this. There's people like outraged over not being outraged over something. So imagine like.
And when it comes to those kind of, I don't want to say petty quarrels, but obviously if it's on social media, it is petty in that sense where one is presenting something else. And I don't think it's to inform the other person, it's to kind of, I don't know, establish some sense of control over that other person by saying, oh yeah, well you're talking about that school shooting, but what about this thing that happened in Africa? Well, are you trying to educate me about Africa now?
No,
or did you hear what I just said? Or are you just trying to irk me?
Yeah.
Are you trying to get a response out of me so that we can see how far we can take this?
Well, it's also a little bit of virtue signaling, like, right, like I care about important things. But so imagine like how much time do people spend online? Like I would say now that the stupid Apple, like how much screen time do you get for different stuff? I would say 5-6 hours a day.
Yeah, some people work behind a computer and then go back home and get behind a computer.
Which is probably what they're doing right now as they watch this,
that's
right?
what they're doing now on the computer.
So at
get
the same
off your
time,
computer, you're the problem. No, I'm kidding.
We're probably part of the problem as well. Since we're completely,
but okay, so imagine like people are getting themselves worked up. And everything now is like emotion response. Like if you look at ads, everything is to evoke an emotion. If it's an article, it can't just be facts anymore. It has to be an emotion. So
it has to be one of those catchy thumbnails and
titles. If you're not feeling something,
it's
not a good article. So imagine all these people, then they're coming to a comedy show with all that energy, and it just takes one little word to like throw them off edge and just want to freaking.
You used 2 words. You used outrage culture and virtue signaling.
Yeah.
And I thought those 2 are really important words.
Virtual signal?
Virtue signaling.
Virtue signaling.
Yeah, so the outrage culture is what the whole like, oh my God, I can't believe you're not paying attention to this or that, I'm trying to trump you. And then the virtue signaling is really trying to just show that I care more about these really important issues happening around the world than you do. And it's not treating like the person across the internet as a divine being. It's treating them like someone that you can put in a lower bracket of intelligence than you have.
Yeah. So what
I see how that's brought to comedy and how that totally affects comedy. If people are so, it's almost as though we should aim to have.
I guess they're really charged.
And maybe a solution to a lot of this would be that if we were a little bit more just calm, and we were a little bit more respectful, and we were a little bit more able to take a joke, and we were what is the intent? This is always a really good question, is intent, right, Justin? If I was to say something like, something about you being gay, but I was to say it in a way that was really playful and funny, and that you were like, I know Alan loves me, versus if I was to say it like harshly and aggressively, you'd be like, why do you not?
Well, I'd probably say,
but that's the whole point. The intent of coming to when people are trying to say, what's the intent of your joke? Clearly, comics are trying to be funny. So when you're at a comedy show, always assume that the intent is to laugh, to have a laugh,
and not to offend.
Right. So, but if
you do get pushed to the point of being so offended that you have to yell something out in the middle of their 10-minute set, and they've only done 2 or 3 minutes into it, there's probably something wrong with you. You know, if you can't have that self-control to be able to if you're getting offended from something that a complete stranger is saying on stage, that they've never even directed at you personally, but you're being offended on it to the point where you're actually saying something that's moving you to action. Yeah. That is something that is not okay. And my hypothesis is that we're now hitting a culture where things are moving so quick that people respond quickly like that scenario. I mean, we have our 9-to-5 jobs, and then we go home, and if you have a family, and then it's, I don't know, I don't know if I can articulate that perfectly, but.
I feel like when you're at a comedy show, you're sharing a very intimate moment with whomever's in the room, right? Mm-hmm. And you build up a rapport, and you get to that place together. You feel this energy going forward, and the comedy's great. When it starts to get tricky is when people on social media dissect one little, because usually this is what you'll see. You'll see one little clip.
The sound biting.
One 30-second clip of an hour-long or 2-hour-long show, and people will go in their little echo chamber online and say, oh, well, clearly they're being racist. Yes. And all of their 100 friends and thousands of robot friends are chiming in, like, yes, of course, yes. And so then they feel like, God, I did such a good thing, like telling the world about this, 30-second clip. That's where there's a divide, because whereas before, comics could say whatever the hell they wanted, and most people wouldn't even hear it unless they toured around and they went to the show. Yeah. You could only hear it in that context. And now everything is taken so out of context.
It is. That's good. That's a good point.
And I think that's the difference. Is like, can you really appreciate a comedy show when you're like in the bathroom watching it on your phone? Like,
exactly.
And then pausing.
There's nothing like a live performance comedy show, I think.
And you're saying that people are taking things out of context. That's become a huge issue. Sound biting has become a huge issue, and then you're going into those echo chambers where people are trying to virtue signal and say that I'm proving that this person's not being politically correct, and that makes me so much better that I'm pointing that out.
So then, like, don't go to their show. Like, they're not going to become successful.
Obviously, there are going to be people who you don't agree with and you don't respect, and if you're making it a part of, if you're taking the energy and time to actually make it their lives hell or somehow interfere with their lives, then that's unfortunate.
I can't think of a comedian that like really ever offended me. Like, I'm lucky that I got it. What you're saying, they're just jokes and they're here to make you laugh, and nobody's ever really said anything.
Having said that,
that's from a man's perspective. That's a man.
I'm offended.
Exactly. That's not.
No, it's really true, and I think what people forget too is, like, for instance, even Dave Chappelle, he's even been accused of, I don't know, being transphobic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're a comic, the only way you can really work on your craft and get good at a joke is by trying it out on a stage. And
totally.
There's a fine line between sounding offensive and being funny, and that is true, but then give that comic a chance to work it out. What people are also starting to see is like these intimate shows where even big stars are working out their bits and on topics that are edgy.
Humans evolve and ethics evolve. Give people the chance to evolve their art.
Correct.
No, there's no room for
evolution now.
No, for if you mess up, like there's it feels like there's no coming back. Like no apology is big enough, you are banned for life. And that is really scary.
You can get stigmatized a lot easier today.
Because what happens then is you want to play it more safe. And what I'm hearing a lot is comics who are all talking about the same kind of political things, and sometimes a crowd will just woo by like someone saying a topic or saying like one little tidbit that you might hear on the news, and I'm like, that itself is not a joke, but now comics have to play it safe because they also don't want to be banned for life in this really harsh community that is social media.
So this is a really awesome topic, and I'd love to spend more time on it, because the more that we understand this, the more it enables people to be themselves and to be able to be funny and to poke at things in society that are funny and really make a conversation about it rather than be like, these are completely off-topic things. Ron, as we transition to the topics that, like some of the scientific topics that I want us to talk about, we have some graphics. Have you shown any of the images from?
I have. Super graphic.
Okay, so we have some cool graphics. These are images from when from when we did shows together in the past.
That's me on the left, Florentina on the right.
Yeah.
That's when
we
I was
kind of
white.
meshed together.
Yeah,
I'm holding the
Justin, your chest.
My hair's got.
Oh my goodness.
My boobs. My hair's gotten longer too, hasn't it?
Look at that hair. Look at the excitement.
These
are
real.
some photos from when we were together.
Oh my God, Bigfoot.
Who? Oh yeah.
There's Florentina on the
I'm
left
not on
again.
this. I'm not on
this
this show.
This was on. Yeah, you weren't on this one, but
yeah, I know.
Florentina was.
I see that.
And Florentina, you were on this one.
That was fun.
Yeah.
It was about cows.
Where was that at?
That one was at Rickshaw Stop. Yeah.
Oh, Rickshaw.
Yeah. So okay. So
on
the show,
already?
on the
I guess that's bad.
on the show, we talk a lot to different scientists and entrepreneurs, just like we did on the Science Comedy Show too. People that are at the cutting edge in AI or in blockchain or biotech or neuroscience or geopolitics, all these different fields. And so I want to hear what your thoughts have been. It's been like a year since we've really unpacked these subjects, and I'm curious. Now there's been a year more in artificial intelligence and robotics research. I kind of want to start there with you guys.
This is the best! Oh my God, we are comedians.
Yes.
Let's talk about artificial intelligence.
For sure. Articultural intelligence.
Articultural intelligence.
Artichoke reel.
Or lack thereof, artichoke.
What do you think about it?
Alan, stop it! That is the funniest shit.
Blockchains?
What do we think about AI, the movie?
If I thought about it,
I think I
would be rich now.
Well, about AI, I would totally recast Haley Joel Osment as with Macaulay Culkin. One.
Can we just say, have you seen the creepy AI that's like in Saudi Arabia and her face is like, I'm natural, I can smile.
Sophia, yeah.
Oh, no, I have not.
She's gonna kill somebody.
I do know that.
Honestly, I can't believe
for an AI now, for a robot. Yeah.
In what countries?
She has more rights than me.
Thank you, Ron.
Wow. No way.
Yeah, so we're working on. That's a big deal, because now if you have robots that are completing tasks for companies or working on productivity in organizations, you can actually tax them, and then you can.
That's
I know
crazy.
you can tax robots and AI for completing objectives.
Sorry, I'm farted.
It's very.
No, not really.
Yeah.
I just had to readjust.
So give me your thoughts about artificial intelligence evolving into society. I do want to hear about what you guys think about it.
The only thing that I know about not even artificial intelligence, the only thing that comes to mind is
Elon Musk.
No, 3D houses. Do you hear about this? I'm sure you know about it.
I did.
Like 3D houses
Like
can
3D
actually
printing houses?
printed houses. Yeah, they actually can be made within however many hours or days.
Yeah.
I know, but it takes an artificial intelligence to be able to like do that.
I think.
Anyhow.
I don't know. It would be nice if robots could take over the laborious jobs so that society can have time to do what they're more interested in.
Can I just say
but
this?
But it would have to be together. Like I don't know that America will necessarily agree to that, because we're so different.
But I think also too, well, I don't know if
Florentina, you're just talking about having more time to do what we care about.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
it. And if we can get the drudgery taken away from us.
But I don't even know by creating artificial intelligence, will that answer that? I don't know, because the culture of America is
still
based
so
on capitalism and production and profit, so that even if an artificial intelligence ends up, doing your job, and then you end up being able to have more time, it's only a matter of time until your rent gets higher or something. It's only a matter of time until you have to compensate.
That we would not just go and go to parks and hang out.
I think the solution goes beyond just the artificial of being able to find something to. Not that I'm disagreeing with you, but I'm saying that I think there is a greater solution or an answer that's more internally instilled rather than on the outside artificially. Am I making any sense?
Well, people are hungry for meaning.
Then,
people are hungry for meaning and fulfillment in their life, and typically we're not going to find meaning and fulfillment in life.
I don't think so. Like this fucking puzzle right here. There we go. Oh, I see.
It'll be more difficult to find meaning and fulfillment in life when you have, in many ways. Right now, we might have this. You might have time be completely open and free for certain people that have a financial security, but for other people that don't have a financial security, they don't get to do what they find meaningful or fulfilling in life. And then when let's say everybody does have time to do things that are meaningful and fulfilling, people will still end up choosing to pursue work. Okay, but
well, it's not just about work. If we're talking about productivity, and this kind of goes back to now there's so much more arguing, and
I need to add to this as well. Go on. I'm going to add to it.
No worries.
Yeah.
Like everybody, you can just ask anybody on the street how they're doing, and they'll respond now with a crisis that's happening in the world. And I think that we do have time to pursue what we want, but now a good excuse to not do that is being worried about all of these problems. Yeah. And I'm not saying nothing matters, not at all, but you can't be worried about everything, and yet, like, what are we really doing about it? Like, we're just sounding boards for this depressing topic.
And I need to,
you know what I mean?
May I add to that?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
In that, what I studied in university, when I went to high school, college, I went to university for nursing. I like to say that the reason why I initially went into it was because I wanted to help people.
That's not what you said earlier.
No.
You said money.
And then I later on, in hindsight, thought, the reason why I did go into it was, because it pays pretty well, one. And I thought it was rewarding, and it can be rewarding for some people. I think for other people, it can be you have to have a specific kind of demeanor in doing nursing if you're going to be a good nurse. And
wiping technique.
Stability and security, and I got all those things, but I think I just felt my soul was being completely drowned, I think, in waking up at 5 in the morning to hit the 7 a.m. shift, only to get out at 7 p.m. later on, actually 10 o'clock because I had the chart afterward. And so what my idea was I'll get a job for the next 10, 15 years, retire, and then what we were talking about earlier about how a lot of people now are just working for their retirement to get proper health care.
It's ridiculous.
And I think the culture of America in and of itself is that it instills a mindset for an individual to work constantly so that in the end, after your 30, 40, 50 years of working as much as you can in your youth and prime, you will be rewarded. And I had to unlearn all that kind of stuff when I did have a job, and I stopped it entirely, and I pursued stand-up comedy. I found a love for it, and then other things in entertainment. And the money, I didn't even think about the money, actually. I did initially thought of the money, oh my God, when am I gonna become famous? I wanna have a movie, I wanna have my own sitcom. And I think when I stopped thinking about the money in and of itself as being a goal, and just thinking, okay, I just want to be the best comedian that I can be. That's when things started to change for me. That's when I became a more, I want to say, authentic individual, and being a better human being, and being better morally, I think, and kind and funny. And that's my own experience, and I think that's what the society has to change in that sense, rather than relying on other things to help with your situation. I think it takes an individual person and an individual experience to really come to that realization that, you know, yes, money is important, but it's not entirely everything. I come from a very different perspective, I guess, in that I do have, you know, financial stability at the moment. Who knows where it'll all be in the next couple of years? I don't know. But until then, I'm going to ride this out as much as I can until I have to rely back on doing nursing, because I'm only doing entertainment full time now, and I am able to get by it, and I do now have a confidence that I never had before, and I think that's priceless. So I think we'll end on that. Thank you all so much for watching.
Can I have your autograph?
Yeah.
Meaning and fulfillment is part of this journey that
Yeah.
comes every moment along the way, and it's not something that comes at the very end of what we're building and what we're working on.
Totally.
And so I totally agree. And so now I want to ask this too, as we kind of come to a close. What do you see, because we were just talking about AI, we're talking about robots, we're talking about what we're going to do with our time. What do you see happening right now with the kind of like the drastic levels of inequality that we're facing right now? And I want to know what you think. I want to know what you think.
We
Levels of inequality that have been rampant for the last however billions of years.
About my bank account and how.
I mean, I think, yeah, I don't know.
Well,
It's a very natural evolution of biology.
I think so.
Systems,
I mean, right
yeah.
now, obviously, we're in a shit time with what's his name, and Mr. 45 is president. But I mean, I don't know. Who knows where we'll be in the next 5 to 10 years? I think there was a recent article saying by 2040 we'll be hitting a point of no return when it comes to crisis all over the world.
What year is that again?
Environmentally. It's 2040 or 2050, I think.
Yeah,
and the entire world will be covered underwater.
I hear
know.
it.
I mean, it corrects itself.
quicker.
I think those kind of those economies, it corrects itself, right? You, when there's too much
Hopefully.
power from the top,
yeah.
I mean, it usually does. Look at even czars or
Zara's.
They're bloody.
or Zara.
These corrections
What
are
about
really
Zara?
bloody.
Yeah.
These corrections have been very bloody in the past history.
That's true. So it seems
Well,
like
but here's also the positive too of like having social media is now I do feel like we are more empathetic to what's happening around the world, and
higher
so
level of accountability.
it's also like a little harder for the corrupt to be so the corrupt at the top to stay corrupt so long because the information is spreading quicker.
Yeah.
So if something happens, I mean.
But yes
That's
and
the
no.
pros and cons.
For example, Kavanaugh, for example, I mean, all that information got out there, and he still became a justice.
Well,
And there's
yes, but that's not one example.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that it's not happening, and we still don't know
Mm-hmm.
what could happen. Like, look at how much that has changed, and how many more people are voting locally,
Mm-hmm.
and who are more interested in politics and what's going on in their local government. So, you know, things are correct. They always correct themselves one way or another. So eventually, with inequality, I don't know. Like there's just so many studies that say, you know, a person who like a poor person, like myself, is
I love
or no,
it.
sorry. Like if you have money, like you're not going to be like twice as happy if you have twice as much money. You know, your happiness level, it doesn't depend on that. And I think it's an individual thing, but also like a societal thing to remember not to be so caught up in consumerism.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Absolutely.
is really something to, first and foremost, like, yeah, people need a place to sleep. People need to be able to like afford to live somewhere.
Would you agree too, you guys, that there's not much of a pursuance of art these days because of how the culture is set up, and that you do have to have a 9 to 5, pay your bills, go home, wake up the next day, and that all that time is kind of directed and energy is directed toward just that it's hard to kind of do your own thing?
That's what we were talking about throughout lots of parts of this episode.
And I think in the UK it's different where people can pursue it, but I think here in America, I don't know exactly, I can't say that, but
It could be because too, like no matter what you want to pursue, you need to go to college, and
Absolutely.
now college is like
That's true.
immediately when you get out of college, you're in debt.
But in terms of art, people say, well, like I had a friend who's now a very successful nurse, but when we were in nursing school, she's like, yeah, I love design. I actually wanted to do fashion, but she realized there wasn't as much money in it starting off. And so that idea and that thought was just stuck in her head that she completely no longer pursued it and just did nursing. And she's fine with nursing, but I think she could have been a damn good designer because I saw some of her stuff And it breaks my heart to think, oh my God, this person could have been the next, you know, whoever.
Yeah.
I guess that's where the income inequality also rears its ugly head too, is that when you're from a poorer background and you have a dream to become and do something in the arts, you really do only have one shot, because if you fuck up, you're like in debt for a really long time.
Yes.
And you're like, maybe your family's depending on you, maybe, you know, whatever kind of situation, like you're gonna be homeless if this doesn't work out. And like if you take out a business and you want to have open up a fashion store and it fails, you're screwed, right? Yeah. Whereas when you're richer, you know, you do have the opportunity to like, oh, it didn't work out, guys.
Then I can always fall back on whatever on my parents or whatever.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, and Dad's like, don't worry about it. Try again.
Yeah. I mean, not at the same time. I do know people who do not have the financial income, and they still make it work somehow. And there goes the saying, the starving artist. No matter where we are in the socioeconomic hierarchy, we want to help people achieve the dreams or their visions or whatever they want to build into the world. We talk about this so much on the show. Totally.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it feels like the dreams are like what's the newest clothes I
Absolutely,
can have.
Yeah,
now
exactly.
It's like the shoes.
There's a whole there's a paradigm shift that has to happen away from materialism and towards actualizing some sort of vision of art or of some sort of other inspiration.
And I think, and just to add to that, in order to pursue one's art, there has to be this incredible discipline and focus on just the individual art itself. But because there's so much distraction with social media and with what's happening in the world, and with advancements in technology, it's very difficult to do that. So you can't have one without the other. I don't know about that, but you can't with something progressing so quickly in terms of technology. It's very difficult to pursue what art you may have.
Well, yeah, and figure out actualization when so many new tools and resources are coming and a lot of noise is coming. Okay, I want to wrap up and ask you guys a question that we ask on the show all the time.
Yes, you can send mine to justinlucas@hellokitty.edu.
Let's hear your thoughts on Venmo. Yeah, I'm gonna just ask. Let's see how quickly we can get through these. Maybe we can get through them quickly.
How many are you gonna ask?
I don't know. We'll see.
What is it?
Do you guys think that we're alone in the cosmos?
What sense? Can you be a little more specific?
Are we alone in terms of an intelligent life?
No, we can't be the most intelligent.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. In fact, I think we live multidimensionally right now, even.
Why don't you expand on that a bit? What do you mean?
Like in another dimension, I'm super successful.
I think, there's like life form, I think there's definitely, I came to think, I've experienced, can I just share this experience that I had with you?
What'd you do? You got
Nothing, I was very focused.
Your hair is so soft.
I don't know, I was very focused on.
Out of this world.
Something, I was focused at maybe after dusk, sun had set in already, I was just staring at my window for at least half an hour. But I started to be able to voluntarily dilate my pupils. I don't know if that's able to.
You want mushrooms?
No, I just did it. But then I started seeing shit that may or may not have been there, but that seemed very real. And I think, we can only see things that are according to whatever light it is bouncing off of, but that's according to how we pick it up based on our eyes. And I think by being able to, which is why cats are probably being able to do different things because they can voluntarily, I think people dilate their pupils. But that being said, when I did this is like maybe a month or 2 months ago, there were like eyes in the trees and shit. I don't know if I was on.
Is that why you have to wear glasses now?
These are actually blocking my pupils right now, so they don't kind of constrict and dilate. But I think there are many things that are on this plane of existence that we are maybe able to feel and pick up on, or maybe not able to see on account of our pupils.
Hello, parasites in our gut.
Yeah, totally. There's that. But are you talking about intelligent life outside of our planet?
It could be. Look at the aliens inside of our gut telling us what to do.
Yeah, I think there's also parts of
microbes are fascinating.
But there's also parts of Antarctica as well. I think that are just there are land masses under the sheet of ice that were once inhabited that are completely covered, and who knows what life forms are there.
Binge some YouTube video?
No, this is just
I'm glad you said that, Justin, because that's,
isn't that fascinating?
We don't talk about these things, and I think it's important. I don't dismiss those theories, those suggestions. So, yeah.
Thank you. That in Antarctica or the Arctic, it's just there's land mass under the sheet of ice. So who knows what fucking life is under there?
Top secret stuff.
Totally.
Actually, you better watch yourself. You better shut your mouth, kid, before we come get you.
One time I was on a podcast and we were talking about Princess Diana's death and like the conspiracy, and our mics, like we could hear this beat.
No way. Seriously, you actually heard a beat.
We're like, oh frick, we're being listened to by whatever MI6.
Said PD.
As soon as we talked about her, started talking about her.
Oh my god, yeah, that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
I believe the
what do you believe?
just a full circle on that thought to close that out. Antarctica, the landmass itself was part of Pangea and everything that was connected hundreds of millions of years ago, and then there was life there, and so whatever's been buried, we're not quite sure if we can actually hopefully be able to recover what was there. So there's a lot of research expeditions that still happen. Yeah. A lot of research.
And then parts of the Amazon as well that are just completely covered under bush that we can't see. It's crazy.
All this different type of stuff across the world to still learn about
the pyramids,
archaeology. Do you guys think we're in a simulation?
I'm not laughing at that only because I have thought about that for a moment. Computer simulation like the Matrix?
What is
no, I don't think so.
What does that mean again?
That we're dreaming right now and there's some kind of like actual being that's just...
That you're an avatar.
Yeah.
No, if I was an avatar, I feel like
your hair would be longer, we'd be able to connect it.
Someone would try to like I would just randomly run into a wall. Oh, should I do that?
What is that?
Just kidding.
Shut up.
Because you know when you play video games, sometimes the character, you just do stupid
Have you thought that we've been in Avatar?
A fuckload, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Like an obsessive amount to the point where I'm writing about it a lot, writing about time in the human race a lot. Yeah, we'll see that.
So you've read Immanuel Kant, and you've read...
Yeah, I love Kant.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure you love Kant also, but oh wait, who was the first person who was okay? Get it. Who was the first philosopher who ended up thinking that we were simulation? Was it Descartes or Kant or
Elon Musk?
No.
Yeah. Well, Descartes was, I think, therefore I am. I'm not sure if Descartes was number one. I don't know.
You should know.
We stand on the shoulders of giants. It's really tough to know these things.
Okay, but which philosopher?
Is that different from saying computer simulated?
Prior to that, the question is, the first person that ever said something.
I think
whoever thought of the wheel, right? Who's to say that people before that person didn't think of the wheel?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, for sure.
Well, so then that's the whole point. Is it becomes really difficult to go back and find a lineage of.
Are you familiar with Alan Moore, writer for All Watchmen?
Alan Moore,
graphic novelist. You know what Alan Moore as well. I've seen some of his YouTube videos, but one of the things that he said that he presented a speech where he says that we're nothing but the holograms from the outer edge of the universe.
Sure.
Actually, and we're the figments of, or actually, I know.
Come on, can we believe everything? This is
no. He just said it. It's an interesting thing to like entertain for at one point. Like we're actually just physical manifestations of some other being's thoughts.
So is that why?
Sure.
Is that why it's an important question? Why, if we're in a simulation, because then we're not being controlled? Or
Well, there's a lot of different reasons why it's important, but probably one of the most important reasons why it's important is because it gives you a better understanding of all of the variables that have to be computed in order for this to exist, and how you could just tweak the different variables to tweak the existence, the fabric of what we live in. So how about we? Okay, last question. What do you think is the most beautiful thing in the world?
I had it, and then I just lost it.
That's interesting. I had it too, yeah. The most beautiful thing in the world. I don't know. I feel like tearing up right now. I actually do.
What are you thinking about that's causing you to...
I don't know. You asking what is the most beautiful thing in the world?
I anything.
I actually am tearing up. I don't know why.
Therefore.
I'm tearing up probably because I've thought about that question, but you can't really explain it with words. You can just it's just
tell
a feeling.
Tell me as much as you can.
I think you just have those moments of beyond words. It goes beyond it, and then your body can't help but react the way that I am right now, where I'm like tearing up. And I think that's the best answer I can get.
How have you felt that before? What experiences led you to feel that feeling?
After moments of excitement. Ayahuasca.
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh my God, no, never.
It is creepy.
Either from working with kids, doing this great set. What?
No,
kids are fucking amazing, but especially when it comes to like when you didn't think a kid could do that, and you actually are. You're talking about like moments. Yeah, it has to be a single moment.
Think about trees.
Well, for him, for
me,
you, it can be something completely different.
I thought you meant like in the world.
It is,
like
What is the most beautiful thing in the world? It can be a physical thing. It doesn't have to be an experience or a moment. It can be whatever.
I think it's an experience. I think it's just capsulating a moment where your body is reacting to something that goes beyond words. And I think the most recent one for me was just being completely in awe of what I was looking at. I don't know, maybe I was on Land's End. I was looking at the sunset going into the ocean or into the sun setting. Then I also I was so focused that I ended up seeing in the clouds another city, an actual city that only the light that was hitting my eyes could actually see. And it was a city. There was a city in the
clouds.
In the clouds, at the very border between light and ocean, cloud and sea, and this one single thing you can see, and I saw movement too. And I think when you allow yourself to be able to open yourself up to that being a possibility, shit will happen. Who knows if it was real, but it was very real to me. So I'm convinced that things exist beyond what we can just see in normal day life. And then when we finally focus and don't blink for like an hour straight, then you will see some weird stuff that you will convince yourself is real.
I had a similar experience. It's the most beautiful thing. And that's very similar, but I was on mushrooms.
Go on.
So,
no, that counts.
And for like the first time, and I just remember wanting to be in a meadow. And the most beautiful thing I had ever experienced. It's usually, usually when you're sitting still and you're focusing on something. But I was really focused on this tree and the way that the light was hitting it. And I was so focused that the tree looked like the universe, and it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. It was amazing. So just feeling that close to nature, I think it's beautiful because it's rare nowadays. Like everything is so blocky.
Exactly, everything's concrete and glass and metal and all that stuff. So when you're in that moment of just digitized, if you're in that moment of just being in nature, like you were, you will inevitably see something that will be beautiful.
This has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Thank you for having us.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for it.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
You're the most beautiful thing in the
Oh my God, come here, give me a hug. Florentina, I love you.
I love you too.
I love you, baby.
Yes.
Thank you all so much for joining us. This has been Simulation here today on
We are the overlords.
Tuesday, October 15th, 16th, excuse me. Ladies and gentlemen, if you continue to watch our program, we will have...
We will brainwash you.
Think about this on the way out. On the way out, think about the science of comedy. Think about how it is really important to take that leap of faith and go and create that.
Love it.
Yeah,
so good.
The closing music, man.
I love it.
So, I would just tell people, don't think about comedy so much. Just let it
Just
be.
allow yourself to be comedic by whatever universal comedy is trying to focus
on the beautifulness and don't blink.
Don't blink.
As in, don't
focus on the beauty. Don't try to be funny, just be funny.
Don't try to be the
when
tree.
You try to
Look
be
at
funny.
the tree. When I'm looking at the beautiful tree, I'm not trying to be like, oh my God, I want to be the leaf now.
I think the biggest mistake people can make is that people think that they're separate from what is, and they are not separate. You just have to realize that you are all just one single thing, and that's when you become one beautiful.
You kind of lost me there, but yeah.
Huge thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it. Go and pursue that passion. Go and manifest that destiny into the world.
Manifest that destiny. Manifest destiny. Yes.
Manifest destiny.
Go and shatter through those limiting beliefs and get yourself out there.
Please.
and really think about what goes into, what is going into society with political correctness and comedy, and really start talking to more people about that. See if we can go and get into the truth more.
Not online, just in real person.
Yeah. Also, give us a comment below. Let us know your thoughts on the episode. Also, thank you, Ron, for producing and directing. Thank you, Florentina and Justin. We greatly appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Alan. I want to come back. Let us know.
Much love.
I have one.
Oh, you do? You can use mine.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.